the Football Tribe EG channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Welcome back to yet another live broadcast on your favorite football update channel at this quarter past the hour of 11 p.m. On the night of UEFA Europa League action, as well as the UEFA Conference League. We'll be following updates from the Aston Villa away to FC Basel game, as well as keeping tabs on all the other, games that are happening right now. Earlier on, there were some games that were played. We'll get to know what the results were. But also, more importantly, we'll be getting the draws for the third round of the FA Cup that have been, put out there. Then we'll get to speak about the ridiculously expensive match tickets for the FIFA World Cup, according to, our FIFA stipulations there and their respective tiers. Which I find a little bit suspect. I don't know if they're trying to price people out of match day tickets or they're trying to discourage people from actually physically going to these matches. I do not know what the rationale is, but we will be getting into the thick and depth of all that conversation and concerns during the course of this evening's broadcast. So do join me yet again for that latest. As we speak, Aston Villa are already leading by 0-0 in their game against FC Basel. So that will be happening as well. We'll be bringing you more on that. And then, okay, just updating World Cup. So we'll be talking about all that. Just allow me to have our audios tested, before we proceed any further in the context of tonight's broadcast. Really, a lot is happening, and it never ceases to do so. LFC, I haven't seen you in a bit. I hope you're doing okay, my brother. I hope you're doing all right. Pedri, you've been absent for the last 3 or so broadcasts. I hope you can reunite with us. I hope you're okay in any case. Will be nice to hear from you as we go through this broadcast. For those of you that are just joining us, my name is Robert Kesakos, and I do come to you live from Kampala, Uganda. And it's 20 minutes past the hour of 11 p.m. that we are doing this, following updates from the UEFA Europa League, but also we'll get to discuss the FIFA World Cup exorbitant tickets. Somebody has already written to us in Espanol. At least it does appear that way. No hablas Espanol. No hablas Espanol. I do not know much of Espanol really, apart from, saying buenos dias, which is supposed to be good morning. And I know it's not a good morning for you, but I'll also say, como estás? Como estás? That's all. That's the best I can say. And it was recently taught to me by one of our, ardent followers. So that's the little I can pull, if it is even indeed what you expected of me. But thank you so much for being part of the broadcast already. It's a pleasure to see you around. Apologies, I did not get to read your name. Oh, Jesus Christ. Fabian, yes. Hi, Fabian. How are you doing, my brother, on this beautiful Thursday night / evening? Oh, Jesus Christ. That's a strong order, really. That's an awfully strong order. Awfully. I don't know where it's coming from, but yeah. It's awfully strong. Anyways, guys, a lot is happening. But like I said, our focus is going to be in the UEFA Europa League tonight, where action is already ongoing as we speak in the moment. Crystal Palace are also leading by 0-0 against Shelbourne in their game in the UEFA Conference League. That was scored by Uche with Eddie Nketiah providing their assist there. Oh, Jesus Christ. FC Barcelona trying to find the equalizer against Aston Villa, but is still eluding them. Anyways, in the earlier fixtures, Nottingham Forest beat up against Utrecht by 2-1. Igor Jesus among the goal scorers, as well as Karim Wendo there for Nottingham Forest, released the Horn was the goal scorer for what turned out to be a consolation for Utrecht. But Dinamo Zagreb lost to RB Leipzig. Dinamo Zagreb lost to Real Betis by 3-1. Released Midtjylland beat up against Genk by 0-0. Rangers got beat by Ferencváros by 2-1. Ludogorets and PAOK, that one ended in a 3-3 draw. Nice lost to SC Braga by 1-0, while Sturm Graz also lost to Crvena Zvezda by 1-0. Stuttgart beat up against Maccabi Tel Aviv by 4-1, while Young Boys beat up against Lille by 1-0. As we speak, like I said, Ivan Guessand was the goal scorer in the 12th minute to give Aston Villa the lead. That game is in the 23rd minute as we speak. And then Celta Vigo are 1-0 up against Bologna. Celtic 1-0 behind against AC Roma. FC Porto and Malamo, that's still goalless, while FCSB 1-0 against Feyenoord. Freiburg and Salzburg is still goalless, while Olympic Lyon are leading by 2-1 against Go Ahead Eagles. Released Panathinaikos and Victoria Pilsen is still goalless. So those are the updates right from the UEFA Europa League there as we speak. So excuse me. Yeah, we will be, like I said, we'll be following directly what's taking place in that game between Aston Villa and FC Basel there from Switzerland. Then also we will we'll be talking about the FA Cup, a third round draws. Those are out, and Manchester United. Excuse me. Manchester United do not have it any easy because their game is going to come against Brighton and Hove Albion. There's a couple of difficult games in terms of Premier League teams coming up against each other as early as this third round stage, with Newcastle up against Bournemouth. So these fixtures are set to be played on the 10th of January. That's the weekend of 10th January, which will be the second weekend of that month. So ordinarily, depending on, it depends anyway on how the calendar year wraps up, but usually it's the first weekend of January. But this time around, the first weekend does coincide with oftentimes the New Year's New Year's Eve, games, which is also going to be around the weekend. So that's the slight change. So on the 10th of January is when you should expect those. I mean, we've been rewatching that Ivan Guassan goal, and I mean, what a goal. He scored it while even on the floor. Slightly similar to the kind of goal that Bruno Fernandes scored against Wolves on Monday Night Football in the Premier League. Excuse me. So, in as far as the FA Cup third round, here is the run of fixtures. So, there's still so many teams at this stage. Of course, Premier League teams transition into the Cup at this stage, at the third round. That means the first and second round have all since been played. And we've already taken out some teams. Now, the FA Cup, by its nature, gets participated in by lots of teams from in and around the UK. So Macclesfield Town will be up against Crystal Palace. Cambridge will take on Birmingham. Newcastle will be up against Bournemouth. Fulham will take on Middlesbrough. Liverpool will be up against Barnsley. Doncaster will take on Southampton. Charlton will be at home against Chelsea. Stoke City will take on Coventry. MK Dons or Milton Keynes Dons will be up against Oxford. Sheffield Wednesday will take on Brentford. Ipswich Town will be up against Blackpool. Aston Villa will be away to Tottenham Hotspurs. That's one of the biggest games. Sorry, one of the biggest games, if not the very biggest, at this stage of the competition. That's the third round of the FA Cup. Arsenal will be playing away to Portsmouth, while Preston North End will be up against Wigan. Manchester City have it easy at home against Exeter City. Whilst Everton will take on Sunderland. That's another Premier League, dubbed game. Like I told you earlier on, Manchester United will be at Old Trafford against Brighton and Hove Albion. Whilst Hull City will take on Blackburn Rovers. Swansea will be up against West Bromwich Albion. Grimsby Town will take on Winston Super Mare or Mire there. Burnley will be at home against Millwall, while Norwich will take on Walsall. Wrexham will take on Nottingham Forest. Derby County will be up against Leeds United. Bournemouth will be up against Burton, while Port Vale will take on Fleetwood Town. West Ham will be up against Queen's Park Rangers, while Wolverhampton Wanderers will take on Shrewsbury Town. And then Cheltenham will be up against Leicester City, while Bristol City will take on Watford. Sheffield United will be up against Mansfield Town, while Salford City will take on Swindon Town. So that's those are the third round fixtures of the FA Cup. But like I said, some of the games to look forward to is the game between Tottenham Hotspur and against Aston Villa, Manchester United at home against Brighton and Hove Albion, Newcastle at home against Bournemouth, as some of the very, very big fixtures involving two Premier League teams taking on each other, not to mention the game between Everton and Sunderland. Meanwhile, FC Basel have found the equalizer against Aston Villa, and it's 1-1 as we speak. Leroy, the goal scorer there for his first goal in 10 games. Excuse me. So yeah, it's 1-1 between Aston Villa and FC Basel. Unai Emery looking disappointed on the touchline there for how his team have conceded this goal. Might he have been offside by the time he gets played in at the ball crosser? It doesn't appear that way. Actually, not the ball crosser. He takes an aim at goal, and the shot is saved by the goalkeeper, but Aston Villa failed to clear the second ball. It falls in the box, and then Leroy gets his feet to it. I'm sure it's going to be reviewed for a possible offside in the build-up or in the lead-up to the goal, but it's a beautiful, beautiful strike there. It goes into celebrations with Traore. So that's there as well as we speak. Like I said, the goal is being checked for a possible offside. We will get to determine what the verdict is or has been at the end of it all, but we are into the 30th minute of the game so far. Anyways, speaking of Traore, reminds me of the Africa Cup of Nations. We are drawing closer and closer. I think we are now 10 days away from the kickoff of that showpiece. Goal has been ruled out for offside. The earlier attempt on goal, the player had been in an offside position already. Very, very unfortunate for FC Basel. So the goal does not stand. And that's the ugly bit about football these days, is that you score a goal, you go into celebrations, and then suddenly the goal doesn't stand. I mean, you can imagine. You ought to really, really feel for those players that are often involved, not just in the process of scoring the goal and in the celebrations themselves. Meanwhile, FC Porto are now leading up against Malamo by a 1-0. So that's also happening. Speaking of the Africa Cup of Nations, Uganda were the first team to arrive in Morocco. The last two teams that did arrive first for the AFCON got eliminated in the group were the first to be sent packing. I think Guinea-Bissau was that team for the 2023 edition that was played in 2024 in January in Ivory Coast. Then when you rewind things further back, there's another team, but a bit of a coincidence, you could say. But Uganda Cranes arrived really early for the tournament because they are set to play two build-up games. I think one is supposed to be against Gabon for their preparations, for the final preparations for the tournament itself, for the Uganda Cranes there. The unfortunate bit of it is that some of the key players, in as far as the tournament or the Uganda Cranes setup is concerned, are set to arrive a little bit late than the Uganda Cranes head coach. With That's the Uganda Cranes head coach. That's Paul Put would love them really. The likes of I think Toby Sebik, Elio Capradosi, which doesn't really help their preparations that much. But yeah, the boys are out there training in Casablanca to prepare for the tournament. Again, I'm trying to see if I can find the exact lineup in terms of their friendly games that will be coming up really quick. The surprise inclusion for most people, for almost everybody, was KCC goalkeeper Charles Lukwago. I mean, that one, they took four goalkeepers in Dennis Masinde Onyango, Magola, that's Salim Jamal Magola, Nafian Allions, and then Charles Lukwago, of course, Masinde Onyango returning to the frames of the national team, despite having, been retired from national team football. He was summoned back in the last couple of, international games for the Uganda Cranes. And as a senior figure in that team, in the dressing room, is the kind of figure that you'd want around. And although I do feel for the Uganda Cranes, they are in a very tough group. That's in Group C, where you have three-time champions in Nigeria. You have Tunisia, 2004 winners, and then Tanzania. So really, and yet you need at least 4 points to guarantee that you make it out of the group. Meanwhile, for those of you that may have forgotten, this FC Basel side is captained by former Liverpool and Stoke City player Jadon Shaqiri. I mean, one of those players that I really enjoyed watching play. Particularly, I go back to the 2014 World Cup that was hosted in Brazil. I enjoyed watching him play, and Matthew Valbuena for the French national team, at the time. So quite a really impressive stuff there for Jadon Shaqiri, that he is still playing, that he's still making things happen for FC Basel, even at his bit of an advanced age, for a player with his, good body build, diminutive height, and things like that, really. So, Jesus Christ, I've really tried. And it's a goal. I think this one will stand. FC Basel have restored parity. I think this one will stand. I think this one will stand. In as far as so it's 1-1. You can see the face of Matty Cash being suspect and culprit in the goal there. Sorry, for his involvement in the goal. It's a free kick taken by Jadon Shaqiri, and then it floats in a very decent ball. I don't know if the player runs a little too early, but it didn't appear so. But he gets his boot to it to beat the goalkeeper who had come out for the ball and got caught in no man's land there. So Yes, so the Uganda Cranes will be playing up against FAR Rabat on the 13th of December. That's on this Saturday. They will be playing that friendly. And then on the 17th of December, that's when they will be playing Gabon in their build-up games for the final preparations of the Africa Cup of Nations. In terms of their squad, like I said, Salim Jamal Magola, Denis Onyango from Melody Sundowns, Nafan Alionzi from Defense Forces FC in Ethiopia, and Charles Lukwago are the goalkeepers. Defenders, you have Sebi Kitobi, Elio Capradosi, Obita Jordan, Roger Storach, Aziz Kayondo, you have Isaac Mureme, Timothy Awanyi, Owori David, Mukundane Hirari. Isaac Mureme is a figure not really seen in the many recent calls for the national team. But midfielders, surprisingly, they have very few numbers in Kenneth Semakula, Karida Ucho, Seki Ganda Ronald, Bobos Biaruhanga, and Al Hassan Baba. Then the forwards include Alan Okelo, Malvin Rolenzel, Travis Mutiaba, Dennis Omedi, Rogers Mato, Regan Impande, Jude Semgabi, Ekipezu Uche Chuku, Mukwala Stephen, Bogere James, that's the youngster. From Masaka Sunshine FC, that's Bogere James, who represented Uganda at the recently concluded Under-17 World Cup that was hosted in Qatar. And then Ivan Ahimbisiwe from KCC FC, as well as Kwikiriza Shafiq Nana are there. That's the squad for the Uganda Cranes that will be taking them through the, that will be taking them through the Africa Cup of Nations. Really interesting stuff there. Then also, what is? Okay, we'll leave that at the moment for the AFCON in regards to that's the main update from the part of the Uganda Cranes. Now, quickly, I want us to go and discuss something that caught my attention earlier on, and it was brought to my attention by Charles Watts, a journalist there from the UK, when he shared. I wish I could show this to you, but he shared the FIFA World Cup ticket prices by category for the ESTMC members. Now, these figures are selected figures for certain matches. And I mean, tell you what, these figures are just exorbitant. They really are. Really are. And I want to start on this point. The overall ticket prices or tickets are categorized into three categories. You have the top tier, which is what they call the premier tier. That's category 1. Then you have the standard tier, which is category 2, and category 3, which has the value tier. In other words, the value tier are the low-income earners. In other words, or the ones you would call the regular fans that can't afford a certain price bracket. Now, here's how those ticket prices are going to fare. According to online sources, for category 3, this is at the group stages, standard match figures. Tickets will oscillate between $60 US to $265 US. This is for the standard ticket value tier. Then for the standard category, they will oscillate between $400 and $500. And then for the tier 1 or the premier tier, they'll oscillate between $500 and $700. This is for the group stage games. Then at the round of 32, all value tier or category 3 tickets will cost $235. This is according to this This is according to the figures we have. And that's, by the way, subject to change depending on the fixture. Because if at the round of 32, suddenly England are up against Italy, if they do make it to the tournament, then the price of that game will be higher. Then for tier 2 or category 2, it will be $490, while for category 1, it will be $610. When you go to the round of 16, again, this is according to online sources. That's where things sort of go out of hand, in my opinion. Now, you have these tickets going for, for the round of 16. Oh, Jesus Christ. Aston Villa are living nervously, almost came close to conceding the second there. Shaqiri, he's offside. That must have been offside. Finally, the flag goes up. Okay. So, according to the match, these are some of, for example, some of the selected games. And this is what what's shared. What should we begin from? Let's go through it all. Match 22, which is England versus Croatia, that will be played in Dallas. That's Texas. Tier 1 or category 1 or the supporter premium, the ticket will go for $700. Standard will go for $500, while the supporter value will go for $265. I understand some of these are developed countries and that the income per capita is really, really high. But let's be honest, $265 does not come cheap to a regular fan, football fan. Nor does $500. Nor does $700. Now, for the people within those categories of $700, I think that's okay for them, or they can really afford it. Hi, Daniel Tuton. Good to have you back on the podcast. Maybe those can afford, but tier 2 and tier 3, that's where I have it bad. Then you go for match 45, England against Ghana, that will be played in Boston. Category 1 or the premier tickets will go for $600. Then standard will go for $430. And then the supporter value will go for $220, which is still high. Of course, this is lesser compared to, or slightly cheaper compared to the earlier ones. And again, like I told you, the ticket prices are going to vary based on which teams are playing. Some teams will command higher ticket values or prices, as you will come to observe. Daniel Tuchon is saying, how are you today? I'm all right, sir. Good to have you. How are you? I hope you're okay. I am out for 6 weeks because I pulled my hamstring. Sorry about that. I will wish you a quick recovery. I think you may need a good number of ice baths there but we wish you a speedy recovery on your journey during that injury. So then match 67, and like I said, this is for a selected group. England against Panama, which will be played in New York, New Jersey. It's New York/New Jersey. Tier 1 will go for $620. Amadou Onana came close to making it 2-1 for Aston Villa as we edge closer to, the end of the first half here. Just a moment because majority of these games are headed for halftime. Almost at the halftime stage. The game between Panathinaikos and Victoria Pilsen is already into halftime. So, anyways, back to the gist of the conversation. I think England will win the World Cup. That's our Daniel Tuton. You hope it does win it, or you're convinced by the talent, by their squad depth, by the experience of Thomas Tuchel as a coach, that they will win it. We'll have to wait and see. But I wish them the best of luck. So the game between England and Panama, like I said, tier 1 will go for $620. Tier 2 will go for $465, while the lower category will go for $220, which is still high. Now, again, this is FIFA trying to capitalize on some of these teams that are favorites to win the tournament. That means their fans will be really, really hyped to go for some of these games, and they are well wishers. But what FIFA ought not to forget is that you also have the neutrals who just want to come and enjoy a game of football because maybe that game is being played in that state or in that city or something like that. So there's that. Then you get to the round of 32. Category 1 will cost no less than $610. Category 2 will cost no less than $490, while Category 3 will cost no less than $235. When you get to the round of 16, the prices go higher. For Category 1, it will cost $770, while Category 2, they will cost $605. And then Category 3 will cost $295. Now, in other words, the more advanced we go into the tournament, the more FIFA is cutting out the regular fund. Practically, that's what they're saying. And that is what will be happening. Now, we live in a world that is not fair, and we never expect it to be fair. But then this is just ridiculous, in my point. For context, I've never bought a matchday ticket at such a tournament, whether it's the Euros, whether it's AFCON, whether it's the World Cup. I've never. But I understand sort of the pain that football fans that are looking forward to this, that should be looking forward to. In other words, if let's say, assume you're going to travel from the UK and you want to watch all the England's group stage games, the game between Aston Villa and FC Barca has gone into halftime and it's 1 apiece, that means you're going to need no less than $10,000 just to get through, by the way. No less than $10,000 for just match tickets. If let's say you want to watch England and they go all the way to the final, that's what you should expect. Now tell me, $10,000 is not pocket change, not even for some of the middle class income families. Now, when you get to the round of 16, those are the prices. When you get the quarterfinals, it gets worse. Tier 1, tickets will cost no less than $1,440, while Tier 2 will cost no less than $1,015, while Category 3 will cost no less than $680. At the semifinals that will be played in Atlanta or Dallas, tickets will go for Tier 1 no less than $3,170, whereas Tier 2 will cost no less than $2,440, with Tier 3 costing no less than $920. It's just ridiculous. It's just too high. And I hope they get to review this and probably slice some of these match tickets. Otherwise, we could see some empty stadiums at the World Cup. Then, when you get to the third place playoff, that's for the bronze final that will be played in Miami. Category 1 tickets will cost $1,125. I mean, this is a third place playoff. Category 2 will cost no less than $865, while Category 3 will cost no less than $445. Hi, Football Royale. Good to have you on the broadcast. Really, you join us. We are looking at, those match day tickets as released by FIFA for the World Cup 2026. And those prices are really ridiculous, in my opinion. Then, when you get to the final, which is the final game of the tournament, that's where it gets absolutely bonkers. If you thought what we've gone through is too expensive, now hear this, because price tickets are for the semi-finals and this compared to the finals have been more than doubled, in some cases more than tripled. Here's what you should expect. For the final, tier 1 or category 1 tickets will go for no less than $8,680. $8,680. Yep. Then tier 2 or category 2 will cost no less than $5,575. And then for category 3 or the supporter value, they will cost no less than $4,185. I mean, that's just ridiculously expensive. If we're talking Ugandan currency, $4,000, you're almost in 15 million shillings just to watch the finals of the World Cup. It's just ridiculously expensive. I don't know what you guys feel about that. FIFA is just trying to make money. There was no need to have the World Cup in 3 different countries. I mean, now, I do not know what their justification was to have it hosted in Canada, Mexico, and USA. But, of course, with the context being USA being the richest country, they have the biggest economy, even though it largely lives on credit, which, when you come to our side of the aisle, is a little bit questionable. But that's not the point, or that notwithstanding. I mean, it's just too expensive. Forget the fact that it's going to be hosted across 3 different countries. Unless the regular fan is going to be a drug dealer, how do you afford $4,000 to watch a final? I mean, if you're just a regular fan, and especially in 2 countries that do not really care about football. Exactly. Like, USA is not the most footballing nation. Nor is Canada, But because it's the summer, some people are off work and they're on summer holidays and stuff like that. People will get time to go and watch the games. But for me, these ticket prices are ridiculous. I think I should share this on our community, for people to go on there and see. It's just ridiculously expensive, really. And you must feel for the everyday fan, the regular fan that would love to go to some of these games, really. I mean, when it comes to the premium or the top tier, usually that class are the people that do not care about the money. It's about the value. It's about the experience. And those are people that can afford those kinds of tickets, So, for example, let's say if you're Kevin Hart and you want to go and watch one of these games, I mean, $8,000 for a final is okay for you. You can afford that. Maybe. But $4,000 for somebody, $4,000 in my currency is about 68,000 rand. That's more than some people earn in a year. My point exactly. Let me give you for context, and I know, and I don't know whether this will come back to bite me, but Majority, okay, let me use the sample space of Ugandans. Majority of Ugandans in the former working class, and by majority, I mean way more than 70%, do not earn $300 a month. So to break it down for you, you have people earning anywhere between $75, actually, anywhere between $50 to $200 per month. Now, let's exaggerate it a little bit and assume that everybody earns $300 per month. At the end of the year, that's times 12, you'll have earned what? $36,000 a year. And it's just ridiculous, even for economies that are really, really advanced. It's just expensive, because what makes it expensive is assuming you're traveling far, you're from Europe. That means you're going to buy an air ticket, you're going to book a hotel, depending on if you're going to be there for the length of the tournament. So let's assume that, let's say you're going to buy a ticket, an air ticket to and from, that is, let's say $1,000, since Europe to USA. I'm assuming here. We are just making simple assumptions. Then that's $1,000. Let's assume you're going to book a hotel or an Airbnb that goes for $50 per day or per night. So $50 times 30 days, that's the month of the duration of the World Cup, we're assuming, is $1,500. So now that's $2,500 for you to watch a game. We're assuming you're coming, let's say, from the UK. And then you have to eat. Let's assume every day you're going to spend $100 on eats and drinks. That means you'll have spent $3,000 on feeding. And by feeding, I mean everything to do, maybe some bit of partying, if you're a beer drinker, all those kinds of things. We're just putting them in those $100 per day. So it's $3,000 for 30 days. So that brings our total to already $5,500. That's before you attend a game of football. If you're from the UK, as is the case here, you're not going to buy a ticket. We're assuming you are a supporter value category. That's category 3, the lowest. You're not going to spend no less than $220 at any given one time on a match. And that's for only 2 games. The game against Panama and the game against Ghana. So that's already $420. If you want to watch the game against Croatia, add $265. That's already $705. Add it to the $5,500 and you're already $6,200. It's just ridiculously expensive. This World Cup is mostly for the rich Europeans. They know that most countries in Africa cannot afford to watch their team play against bigger European teams. They could have made exceptions for the poorer nations, like lowest ticket prices or accommodation. I would want to think so as well. Now, let's say you're an England fan, you've watched all 3 group games. That's the level you are at. England goes to the round of 32 and you spend $235. They go to the that brings our total to a ballpark of around $6,440. then you go to the round of 16 and pay $295. You see, we're already heading to $7,000. Now, when you get to the semifinals, we get to the quarterfinals, you're going to pay no less than $680. So we are around now $7,400, about there. If you get to the semifinals, you're going to pay $920. We are in 8K. Now, 8,000, if you do reach the finals, the lowest ticket for category 3 or supporter value is $4,185. So that takes you already to around $12,500 just for the World Cup. Tell me how many passionate, how many adherent football fans. I'm talking about the average fan, the kind of fan that earns anywhere between, let's say, between $2,500 to $4,000 a month. If that's what they're earning, then take off. You guys have your mortgages, you have a car insurance or a car payment plan, you have health insurance, etc. All those. Now, if you earn about $4,000 a month, that means about $2,500 goes into those expenses, and you're left with about $1,500. That's where you have groceries, gas money, some savings, etc. Miscellaneous. It's already that expensive. Really, it's too expensive. It's just too expensive. And I can see the BBC has put out something to say that tickets for the supporters standard tier for the World Cup final are £4,162 compared to $747 in 2022. You can imagine that at the World Cup 2022, it cost fans £747 to watch England at the semi-finals. Remember, they lost to France. Now, how do you jump from 747 to 4,000? If it had jumped from that to £1,000, I'd understand, But that's a what percentage increase? That's nearly a 3,300 increase, £3,300 increase. That's more than quadruple the ticket price then. So for me, it's really bad. It's really, really bad. It's really bad. It doesn't look pretty. It doesn't look pretty. Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. So you must feel for the fans. You must feel for those fans. I'm trying to put up that ticketing thing on our communities so that people can look at it. FIFA's ticket prices for the World Cup 2026 in the USA, Canada, and Mexico. I'll add on absolutely ridiculous, in my opinion. What do you guys think? So you can find that post over there, and let me know what your feelings are on that in particular, really. But I find that ridiculously expensive. Football Royal says they could have made exceptions for the poor nations, like, yeah, that I certainly agree. I mean, it's just too expensive. It's just too expensive. Absolutely. Anyway, the second half for that Aston Villa game has resumed. Still 1-1 between Aston Villa and FC Basel. I mean, really, honestly speaking, Gianni Infantino and I don't know, is the USA imposing so much taxes on these tickets that it's caused the price to surge up that high, or what? I don't know. What are the mechanisms? What are the determinants of ticket prices? Because I know for a fact that taxes could be one of the things. Because when you go to countries in Asia, countries like Saudi Arabia, I think, Qatar, UAE, their taxes are very, very relaxed, from what I gather. But even if that were to be the case, this is still expensive. I mean, the lowest ticket, in my opinion, should be going for $100 and $120. Thereabout, especially at the group stages, because we're having more games this time round. We're having 12 groups, and I'm talking about the lowest ticket. So, for example, if Panama is playing up against Ghana, ticket should be $100. That I understand. Because even at $100, you may not still fill the stadium. Then maybe even $50, by the way. Because, like I said, for an African who may have the capability, the financial muscle to travel to the USA, provided they've gotten the visa. And we're not talking about the wealthy class. We're talking about those that consider themselves rich. Then, given all the other expenses that fall in between, that you ought to take care of as a traveling fan, then clearly they should find a way to relax those prices for them. Now, also remember that after match day 1 and 2, depending on the context of the group and the importance or the significance of the final match of the group stage of the group, that in itself will cause ticket prices to go up. So take an example. Let's assume by the time England meet Panama, let's say they get beat against Croatia, and that's in their first game, and then win against Ghana, and for some reason they need to beat up against Panama to qualify for the round of 32. That in itself is going to make that game even more expensive because of its significance. That means people are going to want to watch it by the virtue of that fact. So when you think about it in the broader context of things, it gets even more ridiculous. I'm really hoping, and I'm really hoping that I'm not hoping against hope, that FIFA get to revise this. If that is said to be the case, that the USA, as much as they want to make some money in the form of taxes, we know how they love the taxes. it is still ridiculous. I mean, even if, let's say, the USA is going to tax that the tax rate, Yuri Tillemans with a brilliant goal to make it 2-1 for Aston Villa. Goal from the outside of the area, basically passes that ball into the back of the net. Beautiful, beautiful goal he scored there, you know. So even if, let's say, the USA want 50% tax, so that means if the ticket is going, presumably, if the ticket is supposed to be for $120, that means it goes to $240 when you do the markup of tax. I mean, FIFA should be negotiating for a special tax rate for some of these tickets to say, category 1, let's do 25%, let's do 30%. You know, then category 2 will do maybe 30 to 35%. And then category 1, that's where we will do anywhere between 40 to 50%, you know, in terms of their taxes. Those are the discussions I assume they should be having, if they are not already having them. If the cause of these high prices is everything to do with taxes, you know, if that is the case, really. Because, like I said, the person are traveling to go and watch the World Cup, it's not just about the match day. One, and forget not that there is another factor in all this, that you could be an England fan who's, let's say, going to be in the city of Miami, just assumptions here. And on the days that England is not playing, there's some other big countries that are playing that you may be interested in watching. So that means you may want to go to some of those other games, especially at the group stages and round of 32, where the options of games is still quite, you know, very much. Then the other thing we did not factor in these expenses compilations was the inland travel. Whether you're going to rent a car, whether you're going to do Uber, whether you're going to do self-drive, I do not know. Whatever the case is, whether you're going to charter okay, I don't know if it's no, it's hiring a car. You can't charter a car. But whatever the context is that you think is going to be your mode of transport, you won't avoid flying. Because, for example, you've seen one game for the UK is in Dallas and another is in Boston. You know, you can't get there by road trip to enjoy the other bit of the USA, but it may be easier for you to fly. So when you add in the combination of inland travel, and again, when you go for World Cup, it's an expense. Sorry, it's an experience. You're going to want to pick up a couple of souvenirs here and there. So shopping. Let's look at that. So by the time you finish it out all, for a regular fan, you may have spent no less than $15,000. Anywhere between $15,000 and $20,000 USD. That's about what? More than 70 million Uganda shillings. I know our currency is not the strongest, but I just want to put it in context for a Ugandan football fan. You know? And we know that even for a middle class income family, $20,000 is still not pocket change. You must be rich or wealthy for that to be your pocket change. And by rich, you must be very rich. In other words, you have $1 million or at least $500,000 in your account. You know? So, I don't know. Let's see what some of the reaction is in regards to this. And particularly, I'll read off, that post by BBC Sport to get the reaction from the comment section to see what people have to say about these prices. And that's somebody said, this is Joe Lianam, saying, and that's before they book a flight and an overpaid hotel after having to submit 5 years of social media posts for security to US authorities. Hi Pedri saying World Cup tickets very expensive, yet high demand. Just watch it at home. You also get amazing commentary and watch it with friends. I mean, yeah, you get that, but Ivan Guessand, what was he thinking? Should have been able to buy that chance to make it 3-1 for Aston Villa. But my point is, there's a fan that has been saving for this World Cup to say, I want to travel to my first ever World Cup, and the USA is going to be that. They were unable to go to Qatar, they were unable to go to Russia, they were unable to go to Brazil, they were unable to come to South Africa. Whichever the case is. So you always have first-timers who are aspiring to travel and have that experience. Now, you can also travel and still not watch it from, quote unquote, not watch all games from the stadiums and maybe go for a couple of games, really to watch, many others on TV in your hotel room or your Airbnb. That's if it has cable. But still, it doesn't make it any cheaper, It doesn't make it any cheaper. Sorry, Pedro, you add on to say, okay. I'm trying to get those comments. You say, all right, you say the Qatar was the best World Cup. Prices were so cheap, amazing host, amazing timings, very entertaining, historic final. It was amazing. Indeed, it was very amazing. And like I was explaining earlier on, that I would want to think that part of the reason as to why tickets are being expensive here is due to the high taxes in the USA. Because I think Qatar is one of the few countries who have a surplus budget. That means they get to spend their revenues and have a balance left over, in the bank, whatever the case, in their reserves, in their coffers. Now, their taxes are fairly low. Same happens in the UAE. That's why you have so many companies are shifting their bases or, area of business in the UAE because taxes are really low, whether it's corporate tax or income tax, whatever the case, VAT, blah, 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 whatever you may call it. Taxes are more relaxed there. So that's why Dubai has become a business hub and some of those other cities within the United Arab Emirates. Okay, FIFA peace prizes and FIFA corruption need to be paid for. That is Ahmed Swahili. There, Skylar Sky says, I bet the day before the game it will be like £50. That's working class support. Somebody said working class sport. That's the magic mod on X. The people's game. Then Formula F1 2025 most expensive average ticket prices. Somebody posted that, and this is for Formula One. And I think this is what, Imola at 414, Belgium 423, Las Vegas 1000, Monaco 706. 76, 750 in Miami, Mexico 688, Qatar 685. I mean, it's Formula One. Formula One has always been for the high end class. FIFA are as corrupt today as they ever were in Sepp Blatter's days. That's according to Martin Allen. Guys, we're reading reactions of people about the ticket prices for the World Cup, or some of them, on a post made by BBC Sport. Somebody says, this is Sean Antrim, says it's supply and demand. Not many people wanted to go to an Islamic authoritarian country to watch football, but people do want to go to the United States to watch it. Okay. Stefan Devlin says, a madness. Football gone to the dogs. Players need to suck off the World Cup. I can fly to Germany, watch Bayern, stay in a five-star hotel, fly back, and it would even cost a 2K pure mark. So, in other words, this person, I would want to assume they are in the UK, that they would fly from the UK to Germany, watch a Bayern Munich game, stay in a five-star hotel, and we know the amenities and everything that comes with that, and then fly back, and they would have spent about £2,000. So if the semi-final is going to go for £4,000, then really, that tells you more about that. This is Jason Snail says it's absolute shocker from FIFA, who are pricing out football fans and its proprietors, and it's the proprietors of bars, restaurants, hotels in host cities local economy that will lose out if match-going fans stay at home. Oh, that's the other side of things. Because if you stay and watch the game from home, that means you're not gathering at the pub, you're not going for the post-match experience, and things like that. We know that if people are going for games, they'll stop over at restaurants and pubs to eat and drink before they actually enter the stadium and things like that. Take a beer, those kind of things. I'm all for it, so long as there is commitment to increase the national minimum wage to 150,000 pounds per year, and raise the income tax. And raise the income tax allowance to 125k. That's according to Graham. Then Vince says, years ago, football belonged to the fans and the players and those foolish enough to own clubs. Then people outside football spotted its potential. Week in, week out, drama with millions of fans going to their own versions of paradise every Saturday. Now it's a product. Sad, really. Somebody said simple, and this is a grumpy, old-ish man, said simple, vote with your feet and not attend. Stay at home or go down and support your local pubs rather than the mafia. Good suggestion there. Go to the local pubs, watch it from the pubs, and do not go to the actual stadium. Let them have a COVID-like experience of a match game. Oh, come on. The ball ran away from Yuri Tillemans there. But I thought it had been a brilliant shot corner from Aston Villa. Anyways, so this is a Drake Wally. Says, well, FIFA now have a World Peace Prize to fund. I will be watching on TV, assuming two things: it's available on a free-to-air TV channel, of course, I'm not banned from watching because of my internet history. So, anyways, those are some of the comments from the UK fans about FIFA's ticket prices. Let me see if we can find out more. Oh, before we find more reaction of people on the before we get into the more reaction on ticket prices, this is according to the Madrid zone coming in from in about an hour ago. Said breaking, Real Madrid have informed Vinicius Jr. and his agents that the club will make no more contract renewal offers. He either signs the deal that's been on the table for months now, or he will be put up for sale in the summer 2026 in order to avoid him leaving for free in 2027. That's according to Lee Jano Duril there. That's the source they are quoting. And then I do not know how true this is, but this is according to Center of Course on X. They said that after FC Haka were relegated to the second division in Finland, a group of three minor fans set fire to the stadium stands. I don't know how true that is. Please take it with a pinch of salt. Okay, let's try to find more reaction on those FIFA prices. All right, all right. Are we still trying to find more reaction from people? Mhm. From people about those from people about from football fans across the world about some of those ticket sort of prices as released by FIFA at least. Okay, let's see if it should be among the trends really. I don't know why it's not, but it should be among the trends. Let's see if we can call out FIFA on their ridiculous ticket prices. The game between Aston Villa and FC Barcelona is still 2 goals to 1. Okay, yes, FIFA tickets. Henry Winter said, I stopped counting the cost of the tickets when I realized it cost more than my wedding. Outraged England fan at cost of supporting team at the World Cup with flights, accommodation, transport, refueling, taxes, etc. On top, shameless pricing by FIFA. There, you know, then Excuse me. Mhm. All right. There's somebody with a comment. Sandra. Sandra says hi. Hi, Sandra. Um, Somebody posted. This is by Barry Anderson saying ticket prices are from the initial World Cup 2026 bid document submitted by USA, Canada, and Mexico, unpublished in 2018. Tickets are as low as $21 and $31 are promised. Only semifinals and finals above 1,000. Where are these prices? FIFA. You know, that's the question. This is according to the Athletic. FIFA's pricing for the tickets available to supporters of teams at the World Cup has been criticized by the leading European soccer fans group. Foot, the add-on to say football supporters Europe has called on FIFA immediately halt ticket sales for participating member associations due to what it calls a monumental betrayal of the tradition of the World Cup. Again, absolutely ridiculous. This was according to Sky. FIFA has been urged to halt all, World Cup ticket sales after it emerged countries most loyal. Okay? After it emerged, countries' most loyal fans are first paying extortionate prices for tickets, with the cheapest for the final coming in at over £3,000. Again, like I said, these figures are absolutely ridiculous. Let's get an update from all the other games in the UEFA Europa League. We will get back to the ticket price conversation in a moment. Okay. FC Basel still 2-1 behind against Aston Villa. Fenerbahce are leading by 4-0 against Brann. Bologna are now leading against Celta Vigo by 2-1. AC Roma are 3-0 up against Celtic. FC Porto are 2-0 up against Malamo. Feyenoord are 3-2 ahead of FCSB. Freiburg are leading Salzburg by 0-0. Lyon are still leading Go Ahead Eagles by 2-1. Released the game between Panathinaikos and Victoria Pilsen is still goalless. Crystal Palace are leading by 3-0 in their game against Shelbourne. Eddie Nketiah among the goal scorers, as well as Jeremy Pino and Uche are there for Oliver Glasner's men in that competition. So, again, absolute. Really? They just keep piling on and piling on. That's FIFA, increasing their ticket prices. It's the nature of capitalism that we acknowledge. But the question is, at what cost eventually? There has to be a cap. Anyways, guys, why don't you allow me wrap it here? It's been 1 hour and 19 minutes into this podcast. You can keep, watching and enjoying the UEFA Europa League. I will get more of these results tomorrow as we look forward to the weekend as well. But we cannot see through these games. They're not as big as the UEFA Champions League. It's a second-tier competition. So thank you so much, Pedri. Thank you so much, Sandra. Thank you so much, Football Royal. Thank you so much, Daniel Tuton. And every single one of you that managed, Fabian, and every single one of you that managed to be part of tonight's podcast. It's been a pleasure doing this with you. Stay blessed, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye for now. See you guys tomorrow.